And thank God for my parents, my father who died when I was quite young, but who loved me. An unexpected child. He wanted a son, but he was very happy to have a daughter. And my mother, whom I learned to love very, very deeply and dearly. Because after my father died, she was strict to me, very strict. And I used to long for the throwing up in the air of my father and putting me around his back and so on. And they don't do this, sit properly, this, that, and the other. And after my sister got married at 10, I was 10, my mother and myself became very close. And I thank her for the little things she said to me. No cross, no crown.
But this simple country girl is a unique and extraordinary individual who has touched and fashioned the lives of many. Mothers and wives, teachers, nurses, doctors, lawyers, religious sisters, politicians, artists, athletes can all be counted among her girls. Individuals with jobs in the public and private sector, there are those who run their own businesses and others who have ventured into careers not traditionally held by women. Because you are what you are, Sister Gabrielle, you have had a tremendous impact on.
A pleasant good afternoon to all our viewers and listeners of the Bubb Report, and we welcome you to this very special edition of the Bubb Report, not traditionally aired in our 10 o'clock Sunday slot. But we are airing this program to honor one of Grenada's most preeminent educators of the late 20th century and early 21st century. Now, last week, Grenada lost this lifelong educator and religious missionary who dedicated her life to faith and to the education of young girls, both in Grenada and across the Eastern Caribbean. In Grenada, the St. Joseph's Convent St. George's and Sister Gabrielle Mason became synonymous with a tradition of academic and professional excellence during her time as principal. Sister Gabrielle also witnessed the first throes of the evolution of education in Grenada and the Caribbean, while being a steadfast advocate for saving teachers in order to save the children. Many generations of young ladies who attended the St. Joseph's Convent St. George's, as well as the St. Joseph's Convent in Maracua, St. Vincent and the Grenadines from 1970 to 1974, are remembering the life and legacy of the daughter of the soil. The daughter of the village of Munich in St. Andrew shaped the landscape of secondary education through her formidable work at the island's oldest secondary school for girls, founded in 1875 by the Irish Sisters of the Order of St. Joseph's of Cluny, of which Sister Gabrielle was a member and a provincial leader. Grenadian media practitioner Hamlet Mark, who is also from the village of Munich, in reflecting on her passing, wrote, quote, Sister Gabrielle Mason, as everyone called her in the village when we were growing up, Teacher Sita, or just Gabs for short, was from the proud Mason clan in Munich. Tintin, as everyone else knew. He opines that she was one of the greatest daughters of the village, who had a mastery for great writing, unquote. Huggins CEO and SJC past student Anya Chow Chung, writing on her Facebook page and in paying tribute to her former principal, said, quote, perhaps one of the most profound influences in my life has been that of being under the tutelage and mentorship of the greatest Grenadian woman to be ever, Sister Gabrielle Mason. Her strength of character cast its shadow over all who were in her care. One could never remain in her presence unchanged for the better. We, your girls, shall continue to bloom in the dry season, unquote. To the past students of the St. Joseph's Convent, who had the privilege of being shepherded under her tutelage, she was more than just an educator. She was a mentor, a counselor, a mother, a confidant, and so much more. For the next hour and a half, at least for the next hour, we here at the Bubb Report will honor the life and legacy of one of Grenada's most consequential educators of the last century. And at this time, I wish to welcome the guest for this very special presentation this afternoon. I'm joined by Mrs. Jill Vivek Filbert, who is the current principal of the St. Joseph's Convent, St. George's, and a past student of the St. Joseph's Convent. I'm also joined by Ms. Shauna Cuffey, who is also a past student of the St. Joseph's Convent, St. George's, and Mrs. Nathifa Lewis, who is a past student of the St. Joseph's Convent of the class of 1997. We were hoping to be joined by someone from another era, and that was Mrs. Glennis Roberts. If anyone is in touch with Mrs. Glennis Roberts at this time, I have her please check her email because we did send the link for her to be on. But ladies, welcome to this very special program on the Bubb Report this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Absolutely. And of course, before we really get into the weeds here with respect to Sister Gabrielle's legacy as an educator, let us go down memory lane a little bit and let us perhaps begin by talking about what was your very first memory. Of course, I'm trying to jog your memories here. Back in Form 1, you entered the convent in Form 1, you encountered Sister Gabrielle for the first time. What was your first memory of Sister Gabrielle Mason? Who wants to open that?
Wow, you're really taking us back. I mean, there's so many memories. It's hard to pull up the first one. I mean,
yeah.
For me, one of the things I can remember is, the way that she always greeted us at the beginning of the school day. So that first day of school, in typical fashion, we had our assembly, and really got to see her in her element, talking to the girls, speaking as mentors. And from that very first day, got used to what became her, constant phrase when she let us go: have a good day's hard work. So, I mean, that's all I could come up with.
Have a good day's hard work. Shauna, what about you?
Well, my encounter with her was before Form 1. Having attended St. Louis Girls RC School, I had many encounters with her on the court when she was passing up to go for lunch. She always broke and went for lunch. And when she passed, everybody just stood in awe. And even if you were running like a wild beast, you stopped when she came up. All in Mother Rose, we did that. Afternoon, sister. Afternoon, sister. And then when she passed, you continue. But she made sure to acknowledge, the students who would be coming down the steps, sometimes. So that was my first encounter, the fact that she cared about the students before they came to the convent, and the walk. I always remember the walk, She walked so stately, but she would cast her eyes back and forth to let you know she saw you and acknowledged you.
Okay, Mrs. Filbert?
Yes, I had similar experiences with Mrs. Coffey because I too attended St. Louis. And it's just amazing to see her pass daily. And when I finally got to St. Joseph's Convent, it was about running to meet her in the morning to help her carry her bags in the office. You just had this admiration for her. You wanted to help her. You wanted to be in her presence. And you often look out for her coming across St. Louis Court so that you can be right there at the bottom of the stairs to ask, sister, can I help you with your bag? Good morning, sister. And she's always so pleasant. You want to help me with my bag? Okay, sure. Here's the bag. And you felt important because you're now walking alongside the principal holding her bag. And that's what I remember.
Absolutely. And of course, you are perhaps one of the legacies of Sister Gabrielle as an educator yourself, and now you are the current principal of the St. Joseph's Convent. Before we continue on this train, obviously, Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines and other islands across the Caribbean would be setting in train motions to pay tribute to Sister Gabrielle next week. What plans does the convent have to pay their own tribute to the late sister?
Well, in traditional style at the school, when we heard of the news of Sister Gabrielle's passing, we went into motion and had the school flag and we also got some black fabric so that we can display to show that the school and the community is in mourning for this great woman. All right. Also, our choir would shift gear and start preparing to pay tribute at the funeral. Okay, this afternoon at 6 o'clock, the praise is organized, so we'll have a virtual session. Sister Marianne is the one that is organizing that. And we are working with the Sisters of St. Joseph of Cluny and St. George's to organize to pay tribute to a sister. Now we have secured a date. We have announced a date, but we are still in the planning phase. Obviously, we have to have a provincial, Sister Maureen coming from Trinidad, and other sisters to attend the funeral. Sister Gabrielle herself was provincial. All right, so a lot of things will have to be in place. Of course, her passing was just a few days ago. It's the third night today, so we are in the planning phase. So that's where we are.
Okay. Now, talk to us about in terms of what Sister Gabrielle would have imparted to you as an educator. What were some of those lessons that you still remember that you carry with you in your own work as principal of the convent today?
Very well. And what I'm about to say, I think you may have seen it written or heard it from almost every past pupil who came through under Sister Gabrielle. The consciousness of well-doing is ample reward. That's my mantra. All right. So what we do, just knowing that we do well, we work hard, we serve, we're selfless and all of that, that is enough. We're not looking for thank you, for praise or anything. And she said that to us over and over, just as she wished us a good day's hard work. She also said to us, the consciousness of well-doing is ample reward. And I am taking this with me, and I have taken this with me from school age to now. Sister Gabrielle was my principal at St. Joseph's Convent. She was also my boss when I started to teach. So I had her as principal as well as boss. So I learned a great deal from her. She was very artistic. She had a way with words. She was a giant of a woman, but very gentle at heart. And I'm so happy that I actually was able to visit her in May and spend some time along with a couple other teachers. And it was just so fulfilling, so heartwarming, for her to reflect with us. And she shared with us how much she loved the children. She said, I may have a strong voice, I may walk hard in the corridor, but I love my children. And as principal, I'm trying. I'm not perfect. I may get there eventually, but I'm trying to emulate that love for children. Okay, being firm, but still showing that love and that care that children need, to flourish.
And speaking of bosses, Nathifa, you shared with me that Sister Gabrielle was also your first boss there at the convent. In fact, you also posted that on social media. Talk to us about that transition from being a student under Sister Gabrielle's tutelage to being a teacher at the convent yourself, and having to see Sister Gabrielle through that other lens.
I mean, well, to echo Jill's words, she was empathetic, whether it's as a principal or as a boss. And for me, what always became a kind of humorous part is that I started teaching at the convent during industrial action, teachers one strike. And what kind of stuck out to me, although I knew Sister by that time for all my years as a student, and she has given counsel. I did speak to her, whether it was for, because I was involved in whether it's student government or things of that sort. But coming back at that point to teach, I remember the way that she was really an advocate and a protector, not just of her students, but also of her teachers. Because as a new teacher coming in while teachers are striking, I remember she told us, the new teachers coming in, look, you're new. I can't tell you what to do, but I would, advise you to come in. The students were not there because it was an island-wide strike. But I recall at that time the chief education officer, etc., were trying to come to the schools to see which teachers were showing up. And maybe not in those exact words, but sisters' attitude and decision at that time was not my school, not my teachers. Basically, just as she cared about all of her children, she cared about her teachers. And she never made it feel that, okay, because you were a student 3 years ago, that now as an educator, you were anything less than the teachers who weren't staff before, so forth. She always had an open door for counsel. You had a question, whatever it is, she did not lord anything over you. And as you go throughout, those are some of the things that you realize were very constant about her demeanor, attitude towards you. You felt the need to respect her, but once you got to know her, you realized that she was a teddy bear at heart. She could have a tough exterior, but she was the greatest sweetheart.
Mhm. I've heard that she was firm but fair. Would that be
Yes.
an accurate characterization? I see Shauna smiling. Would you also agree with that characterization, Shauna? If you can unmute the mic. Yeah,
Sorry, I would agree
that's okay.
wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly. I have some words that I would describe Sister as indomitable. I saw Sister as a quintessential woman. I saw her as somebody of substance. I thought that her moral compass was so right that, I don't think she ever had an issue with good governance and integrity. She didn't see gray areas. If it was black, it was black, and if it was white, it was white. And when it came to education, she took the lid off with all the bureaucratic stuff when it came to forging forces to ensure that a child got their holistic education. Before the word holistic was thrusted around, our mission statement stated to give the child a rounded education, and Sister lived by that. She breathed that. She exuded that in her leadership. You know, Sister led from a place of head and heart all together. Head and heart all together, with spirit being the umbrella coverage. I love the way her faith propelled her role as educator. I remember one conversation I had with her. I was a young teacher at the time. She wasn't too happy that I chose to teach at the Presentation Brothers College, and I don't think she ever forgave Brother Robert for hiring me, but that's okay. She said to me, she said, Shauna, whatever you do, let it be spoken of you that you did all in your power to make these children understand that it's their right to be educated. So she saw education as a right. And there was an even playing field with educating everybody under her care. So I have heard some past stories of students who came from far out in the country, and wanted certain things from the convent. And the sister would say, yes, yes, that can happen. Once it would help you to learn, that can happen. And these are students who have spoken to me about their experiences with her from the 80s and 70s and so, who got second chances to even do more subjects. There's a teacher at a top secondary school, and she said to me, Shauna, these subjects I have is because Sister Gabrielle saw I needed a second chance. She saw that these 5 years were not enough for me, and she gave me a second chance. And today I am where I am. So I just wanted to put that out there, yes.
Absolutely. And of course, we would get to legacy because I believe Education, of course, is very important. I am a huge advocate for education. And I believe that's one of the things, in my own personal reflection on Sister Gabrielle, and I'll bring the full panel back here. But as a young reporter in Grenada, yes, I was a young reporter in Grenada for a lot of the young people who may not know. But I would always go to Sister Gabrielle to conduct interviews as a young reporter, and we always spoke about education, and she's one of the people that actually encouraged me to continue with my education, that I should not stop there. And that's one of the things that I do remember of her, as an educator. But of course, viewers and listeners, you are encouraged to submit comments via the comments section here on the live stream. Some comments we will also take from the WhatsApp messages that we received from some of you. But we, of course, have been getting lots of comments following Sister Gabrielle's death. And so we just want to entertain some of those comments. We have here, someone is saying, the stories of those who needed compassion. Sister Gabs was compassionate. Nigel Grave Sandy saying, I was so impressed by Sister's profound humility. Notwithstanding her phenomenal intellect, I never missed an opportunity to engage her whenever the opportunity arose. May eternal rest grant unto her, and perpetual light shine upon her. We have another comment. Dr. Bubb, a great program as usual. We need to bring back these guests. I can listen to Shauna Coffey's soothing voice all day. Josie is saying, I remember house notes, how I used to be scared to go. Can somebody explain that? I'm not. That's, of course, some in-house convent stuff that perhaps you want to explain what that is.
So it was kind of like our in-house method of both honor, like an honor assembly, but
Mhm.
you also had the dishonor part. And it was both based on academics as well as behavior and other things. So within house notes, and we all had, we were, there were four houses. I mean, and in our time it was Adams, Cipriani, Manley, and Marichaud. Today those names have changed, but whether you were in the red house, blue house, green house, or whatnot, um, you won for house notes depending on how your students did. It was a collective effort to do that. So, based on performances in class, yes, you would get called up for, academic mention, and you had one side which was for that. So you say, Latifah St. Louis, uh, academic mention for this or whatever it is, and all those notes came up. But once those were finished, you also had the bad side. So if you were given a lot of trouble or so forth, I think for convent students, one of the issues with going on the bad side was that sometimes you were on the good. Maybe you were good academically, but you were also good socially.
I think we lost Natifa there, but can somebody pick up on?
Was sometimes the
Okay, I
worst
think
part
she's
of
back.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it wasn't done in a, in a malicious manner. It was one of the things that, that you work towards. Your school allowed you to, your each house was, allowed and compete in a friendly competition at the different times, because we recognized that different students had different skills. Some were very academically inclined, some were very talented in the arts, some were very spirited but great students. So it was an opportunity sometimes to kind of formalize that and give you a check that, okay, well, you ended up on the bad time for this, maybe you should go elsewhere. I know Shauna wants to chime in.
Listen,
Shauna,
listen.
The comments are floating in.
Yes, the comments, but
they are.
Natifa, Kellon, and guest Natifa is putting a beautiful exegesis on house notes. Let me put this psychological spin on house notes. House notes was a traumatic experience for most convent girls. Listen, you could be bright as the ace of spade. You could know Pythagoras' theorem by heart. When you heard house notes, even you knew you were in the top 5 or the top 10. Ask you. Everybody got butterflies in their stomach. Listen, people walked around whispering. Nobody used their real voice on that day. It was like Jesus was coming. house notes. Oh
You
Lord.
you wondered if you did something bad and you didn't remember, or
Yes.
you don't know.
You
It's
had to
just
cross over.
it's crazy. But
The
really,
crossover was terrible.
it was a giving feedback, academic feedback as well as otherwise. So you were called out for good performance academically as well as for responsibility and initiative, attitude to authority. So all those commendable traits, you were called out on it. But if you were not, then dishonorable mention. It means that if your punctuality was poor, your attendance, your academic performance, order, conduct, you get called out on it. All right. And I think every student's nightmare was to be called out for honorable mention, meaning that you did well academically or you're responsible and then have to cross the floor to the bad side. Okay, but it was traumatic, as Shauna said, for many of us, even if we know that we did well. Just the thought of Sister Gabrielle having to look at you, for not doing what you're supposed to do, the fear of disappointing her, as a person commented, that I think was most terrifying.
Interesting. I can't remember such system at the presentation college,
No,
but
no.
that is that is I've never heard of this. This is an education for me today. Let us get to some other comments here. Simone is saying it's the fear of even talking after she spoke in house notes, as she will know when someone did not move, when their name was called, good side or bad. Okay, let's get to some other
Yeah, she
comments.
knew every student. You couldn't not do it.
Right. Let's get to some other comments. I believe Simone again is saying sister was a powerhouse in every sense of the word. Secondly, I admire the fact that she knew almost every child by name, which you just intimated. She would call you by name even when she saw you. That is a gift, I believe, that educators have. We have sharp memories. Yes. Another commenter is saying, I loved her laugh and smile. She had some scathing but hilarious one-liners that would make the recipient want the ground to swallow them. She had a witty side. Very interesting. All right. So let us now go to some some WhatsApp comments. We have a WhatsApp comment here from an ex-convent student. Sister Gabrielle was as loving as she was firm. Her daily mantra encouraged me to embrace the honor in diligence and working for the benefit of others. Thank you, sister, for your contribution to my development into a strong, confident, and motivational leader. Rest in peace. Thank you. Another comment, there is so much that comes to mind when I think of Sister Gabrielle. It would take a whole program to discuss, but what has always stuck with me was how gentle yet powerful her words were, of how she should bloom in every dry season. She taught us more than the subject she taught. She has made many of us into women we are today, and for this, I know you're all grateful. We are all grateful, that is. Thank you, Sister Gabs. May you rest in this well-deserved eternal peace. That's Shia, XIA. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, please correct me. A class of 1996. So kindly,
Zia Boxel.
Zia. Okay. Thank you for that. Zia. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Okay, folks. What we want to do is to take a quick break, and we will come back and talk about legacy building, and what that looks like in the context of Sister Gabrielle's legacy as an educator in Grenada. So please stand by. We will be right back after this. Why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
To the cards that I have drawn, that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the
But
public,
you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate and, may I dare say, a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this?
Well, you're assuming that we doing the same strategy.
That you come up here to say what is expected to be said. I thought you would remember when Gabrielle come into the hall. She works hard and misery. That you come up here years after to thank me. It touched me deeply because I loved you all and I couldn't make myself stupid because I want love. So I corrected some. We don't have Dick and Harry, but I and the ladies always join in. They were, but Tom was a little stubborn, and I gave him a little cough something. Yes. And look at him in Sister Gabrielle. And I appreciate it. Amen.
Thank you, Sister.
And we pray that God will keep you around for a longer time so we can experience your love as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So, sister, it's heavy, so you can just touch it.
Credit to Principal Vivek Filbert for that footage. Thank you for that. That was useful, and I'm also grateful that I still have some archival footage of that. Was part of a documentary that I did with Sister Gabrielle on education back in 2002, and I credit to Flo Grenada for furnishing that footage for us. So at this point, what we want to do, panel, is to sort of segue into another part of this conversation, and that has to do with legacy. First question is, what do you think Sister Gabrielle would want her legacy to be? Who wants to start?
I think
Natafa, yes.
that statement she always made, the consciousness of well-doing is ample reward. I think that is an indelible part of her legacy because she lived those words. She did what she did with conviction, with compassion, and so forth, not looking for, accolades based on doing it. And I think having known that there's a whole more than a decade of students who remember those words, 20, 25 years past. This year was my 25th anniversary. Um, I think that is a deep part of her legacy. I would say, as well, the fact that beyond just being at St. Joseph's Convent, she contributed a lot throughout the region with the Clooney sisters. She was an educator, heart and heart. She was a very passionate and talented person. If she had chosen a different path, she could have been a very accomplished poet. I mean, she was in her own right. She has written she has publications in that area, etc. And in addition to the academic portion of being an educator, she also contributed to the literary and other developments. I think one of her babies, and correct me, someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I know during her tenure, a literary competition was something that happened every other year that art festival didn't. And for me, it was also, today there's a lot of talk in education about educating the whole child. And for me, there's nothing new about that. Because if you grew up under someone like Sister Gabrielle, that was always a part of what you did. It wasn't just about the achievements inside the classroom. It was about who you were as a person. It was about the things that you exposed yourself to, whether it's from artistic part or from a responsibility part or so forth. So for me, that is a huge part of her legacy. Um, in some ways, I, I'm sorry that one of our other class pupils, Mr. Akima Paul but is not in here because I know she would have a very lot to contribute to that. And as a matter of fact, has an annual scholarship in Sister Gabrielle's name that contributes to some of the students. So these are some of the things. Like when you think of someone who is dedicated to education, to her convictions as a religious sister, to educating the whole child, to developing into the best person that you could possibly be, these are all parts of Sister Gabrielle's legacy.
Mm-hmm. And Shauna?
Well, I see Sister Gabrielle as an iconic educator. I see her as a poet. I see her as a phenomenal writer. She was a prayer warrior. She was a leader. She was a visionary. She was indeed a woman of God. Sister's brand of leadership was both visible and felt. Sister was not the person who said she was a leader and you couldn't see it and you couldn't feel it. It was felt throughout the Caribbean. The sister always in literary competitions, she always made the theme about the Caribbean, the Caribbean. Sister was one for Caribbean integration. I was honored to be one of her literature students. And, I remember when she taught Henry VIII and we were looking at Thomas More and what he had to suffer. And I remember Sister saying, this is my favorite character, Sir Thomas More, because he stood for his conviction. Sister stood for her conviction. And this to me is what made her an iconic philosopher, visionary, leader, and educator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Mrs. Filbert, of course, you are carrying the torch as principal. Of course, legacy might look very different to you, given that you are in the driver's seat, so to speak. So, were there any particular teachable philosophies that Sister Gabrielle perhaps left with you that you carry on still that can be considered as legacy?
It goes right back to how Natha first started. The consciousness of well-doing is ample reward. And then making sure that you provide a well-rounded education, because education is not just the science subjects, it's not the art subjects, it's knowing how to do everything. Sister Gabrielle taught us how to work hard, how to raise funds. I remember when we were in school, we're contributing and raising funds towards the newest part of what then was the newest part. It was a Form 3 building. All right, so we worked hard for that. Literary competition, you worked hard because apart from it being a competition among houses, it is the arts, the folk choir and the drama and the writing and all of that contributed to well-rounded education. Sister Gabrielle as well was the founder of the fifth form commercial department, and that diversified education at St. Joseph's Convent over 30 years ago. So at the fifth form commercial, skills for the office were taught. So typewriting, word processing, spreadsheet processing techniques, English or business communication, speed writing, those things, that was over 30 years ago. So it must be that she had that vision, that conviction. She saw that young ladies. She saw that students needed to have skills that would take them further, those qualifications. And if we look around our offices, government offices, private sector, you'll have many persons attesting to what the benefits of commercial department if you form commercial. My own sister, she was one of those that, well, in fact, I made a decision and she was not happy at the time. But if you speak to her right now, it was the best thing that ever happened to her. The skills that were acquired in the fifth form commercial is what is carrying her through what she does today in HR. So sisters saw back then the need for that diversification in education, the need for skills. All right. And many years later, that's when we hear of NTA and on all of that, trying to have those skills for different for different students and different levels. And it's just fantastic. It's awesome that sister had that vision so many years ago. So as an educator, that consciousness of well-doing, that service, the orientation to serve selflessly, wholeheartedly, without looking for a reward, the care for the love for children, that is what it keeps me going. I try to reflect on how much she enjoyed, how much she loved, how much she was firm, but still caring and loving, and try to emulate that sort of those characteristics of Sister Gabrielle.
And speaking about the diversifying of education, and you hit on something there which is very important to my mind, and that is the notion that education is not only about the subjects and the way that we think about subjects, yes,
Definitely.
because you can pass those subjects, but what happens to life skills after you're done? And so that program, that commercial program is what I remember they call it. I don't know if that's the same name now. But that was a particular life skill that you can take with you, a technical life skill, yeah. And so you hit on something that I think is so critically important. What else in terms of just diversifying education today? What are your thoughts on just what we need to do around diversifying the current system of education that we have in terms of making innovative changes?
Well, in all honesty, there has been some move to diversify. However, there's a limit in what can happen in terms of resources in the Grenadian context. Okay, so there are great benefits to be had from the skills that are offered at the commercial department. If we can somehow spread that throughout the school and have those qualifications offered not just at the end of your tenure at St. Joseph's Convent, but somewhere before, because we know we're in the age of technology. If students can do word processing, they have typewriting at a certain speed per minute, it goes a long way. If you listen to the stories of students who attended the department, when they go on to university, writing papers and all of that, it is so much easier because it is less time consuming. They actually, some of them can make some money off of typing papers for other persons and all of that. So if we can diversify, if we can introduce those skills, among other skills, because today we're talking coding, we're talking all different skills in the age of technology. If we can continue along that path where we can integrate, it will work very well. Very often we focus on the chemistry, the physics, and that's what happens. At the end of 5 years, you write your CXCs, you write 8, 10 subjects. And yes, that's fine. But if we can integrate those skills a bit more, because I believe there are some schools where it is easier. For the schools that are larger, it is more difficult to integrate because, of course, you need the resources, you need the machines and all of that. We have about 600 students in our school. Of course, we're operating in the same space that we did over 100 years ago, but with more students. So it's going to be very difficult to move in that direction at a speed that is required in our time.
Absolutely. Let's get Ms. Coffey's thoughts on that. Of course, I never knew you thought of the PBC. That's obviously it was not during my time, but
No, no, no. But I wanted to spread my Gabrielle Mason impact elsewhere than at the convent, and I've managed to do that. I have been embraced, you know, by other institutions because, I think it was some good things that I had to infect the rest with. And, I did that and continue to do that in my own area, as a psychotherapist.
yeah.
I am just enlightened that none of us spoke to each other and were saying some powerful things that are so interconnected with Sister's vision. Half of the things Jill said, about Sister putting together the commercial department, that was, and I said she was a visionary. I said it because I know that she has living case examples of being a visionary. Now, the latest research by Paho and so continue to speak about skills gap. While the gap is closing, right, the gap is still there. And over 30 years ago, she saw that as a need. What we need to do now, right, we need to also work while these are tech folk skills. The convent has this wonderful ability of purporting life skills, and that's where I come in because life skills happen to be a part of positive psychology. The self-co-regulated skills that girls need to thrive and to move beyond, right? Not only through the counseling program, but how lessons are taught. So, without being intentional, even under Sister Gabrielle Mason, and I didn't know that until I studied it in university in the US, convent always, St. Joseph's Convent, St. George's, always purported what you call the SEL, right? Which is social and emotional learning. There was never a class where your social and emotional learning curve was not touched. The lessons were set and meant to impact the effective domain, right? So you did not leave anything, any class, any session without feeling like, that touched everywhere. Somehow within the curriculum of St. Joseph's Convent, you could say that you left filled, you left whole. And, Dr. Bob, wholeness is something the world is lacking. The global society and community is seeking wholeness. That's why we have so many people who are on chemical dependency, so many people, you have the gender violence, you have the wars, you have global conflicts, and it starts with the intra conflicts lead to inter conflict. If I am conflicted within my psyche, within my spirit, within myself, then I cannot be at peace with somebody else, and at St. Joseph's Convent, we learned in community. And one of the biggest things about community was our house connection. I am closest to people in my house, Adam's house, who I believe up to now is the best. I still think so that, they can't put my child in another color house because I refuse to wear another color t-shirt at any other sports, And that came from convent. We were house people. So you made great friends with your house. It was a clan. It was a connection. Yes, Glamour, I see you, right? Yes, Adam's people are on and looking. Okay, Jav, where people don't say anything, I know you're on too. Yes, but that house thing brought us.
Tread carefully, thank you.
I'm treading carefully, Jill. Don't bother. I'm treading carefully. I'm not going green today. I lightening up on y'all. I saw y'all want house notes. I'm going to give you that. So I'm just being nice and fair. I'm being nice and fair, right? So that house thing gave us that kind of good camaraderie. Listen, when you had a house competition, it was like the Olympics. You couldn't tell us we weren't competing with the best in the world. And how did that happen, Dr. Bob? It happened by having somebody at the helm who made us feel that we were great and we did not have to prove our greatness. And that is something I want to leave here. That with her, once you stood under her care, you were great already. She just was giving us the tools, the foundational stones, and to build upon that. So those of us who have gone on to higher education, and those of us who have traveled, and those of us who remain to serve, those of us who came back to serve, I can speak for all of us that this great woman has had a hand or many hands in the careers that we've selected, who we are in these careers, and how successful we are. And for that, I want to honor her spirit. I think today she will be one of our greatest ancestors. And I want to thank her for seeing the gifts in all of us and imploring us to exploit them for the good of service.
Very important there for the good of service. And what we want to do is to take one final break, and then we would bring it all together with some closing comments, some closing reflections as we close this very special presentation today. Viewers and listeners, please stand by.
You're muted, Dr. Bubb.
Look at that. I am muted today. I mute myself. I just want to give the panel an opportunity for some closing comments. Nathifa, I would want to begin with you.
I would just say that because of the impact that Sister Gabrielle has had on so many of our lives, this moment of her death really brought back almost 3 decades of memories, of impacts, of seeing how that path is generated. And I would say when I heard the news of it, I was at a celebration for for one of my bosses who was leaving. And I went to the bathroom, and you know that sometimes goosebump feeling that you get. I went back to my desk, and I'm not a crier, and I cried. I was like sitting there, and tears were coming down my eyes, because you realize that a lot of the convictions you have, a lot of the pathways and so forth that you have, were due to the impact of people like Sister Gabrielle. And for me, I think her legacy is going to live on in just about all of the students that she has taught. Did she get on
Mhm.
with every single body all the time? No. Did everyone never every single hour of the day? No. But when you sit back and you reflect, all the things that she did passionately, she did with full conviction, and she did because she truly believed and loved us as a mother, as a bigger sister, as a mentor. And she was never too busy to have that conversation with you if you reached out to her. And she did it in a usually in a calm way. She got upset, and she had a powerful voice when she got upset. Is um she is a great drama and poet and so forth, dramatist and poet. But when she was actually speaking to you, when she was actually disciplining you, it was not in a loud way. It was really, really common. And as many people said, as we went back to the house note incident, you felt more disappointed in yourself for disappointing her sometimes than for the thing itself.
Okay. Nathifa, thank you so much. Mrs. Philbert, you have to go, so I would want to give you the opportunity for some closing comments. But thank you for, of course, agreeing to appear on such short notice. I felt it was important that we honor and pay tribute to this moment on the occasion of Sister Gabrielle's passing. So over to you.
Thank you very much. And I really want to extend gratitude to you, Dr. Bob, for this program. It really means a lot, not just to me, but to the entire St. Joseph's Convent family. Paying tribute to Sister Gabrielle is just, what we're doing today really, yes, it honors her, but it cannot justify how great an educator, a person Sister Gabrielle was. And I remember she always called the office, with me being there as principal, to call, Jill, how you doing? How things going? I'm praying for you. And that meant so much to me, to know that Sister Gabrielle, my principal, my boss, and now I'm sitting in that chair. She said, I know it's not easy, but I'm praying for you. And she would always call periodically whenever things are happening, to say, I remember you, I'm praying for you, and you will do well. And that, to me, it means so much. It really, really touched my heart. And when we visited her last in May, it was such a joy, to hear her, to express, how much she loved the children and how much she appreciated the fact that we remembered her after so many years. So today, while we are saddened, while I am deeply saddened by her passing, I have a sense of peace and comfort knowing that, she was a wonderful person. She lived a full life, and she did what she loved. I reflect on the her poem, with the blooming in the dry season, the bougainvillea, them flowers, them, and I've shared that with my students, and it is so profound. I remember last year's head girl and deputy head girl did that and shared it when there was the CAPS conference, Caribbean Association of Principals of Secondary Schools. That was a poem they selected to share with the rest of the students in the Caribbean and explain how during hard times, because of course it was in the middle of COVID and all of that, the bougainvillea, how it blooms in the dry season, and encourage the other students to bloom even though the times are different and the times are hard. So I can sit here and go on and say so much of what I remembered of Sister Gabrielle, but I think every student, every person who has encountered her would share the same thing. As Mrs. Coffey said, it's amazing that we didn't have a prior conversation and we all come up and we share the same thing, because she was consistent. She was consistent and she treated persons fairly, justly. So I just want to say, in the most profound way, how grateful we are for having her in our lives, for her having touched our lives, so deeply, so profoundly, and to express condolences to every single person in the SJC family. And to say to the sisters of St. Joseph of Cluny, how grateful we are for the years of service and how they continue to serve and in education and otherwise.
Absolutely. Mrs. Vivek Filbert, thank you so very much for taking the time. Very profound reflections there by both you and Nathifa. And of course, Shauna, some closing comments from you.
Just to say before I do a little acrostic that I have, in Form 2, the first literary competition I experienced, our beloved Ricky Hines, who worked very closely with Sister Gabrielle, he passed last year. And I know that they're having conversations already in heaven. He's talking about business and social studies, and she's talking about, life, love, learning, and so. So I remember I wanted to do some things, and they were discussing, and Sister said, Shauna, why don't you try to write your own poems? And because they had that part, to partake. I said, Sister, right? She said, yeah, I think you can. She didn't even teach me. I was a little Form 2. And from then I went on to write poetry. I went on to write plays for Madam's House, which we won every time I wrote, I must say. And that was because she didn't teach me, but saw something in me. And I get emotional because when people see gifts, we must share with others the gifts we see and the importance of utilizing that gift. Right? So I'm going to end with an acrostic. Gabrielle. G, godly. A, admirable. B, bold and brilliant. R, revered. I, inspiring innovator. E, educator. L, listener. L, loving. E, eternally excellent. Sister, bless you. Bless everyone. To our SJC family and all connected to Sister Gabrielle. Just stay blessed, stay lifted, and soar high as she is soaring high. Thank you.
Shauna Coffey, thank you so much for that very stirring closing to the program. And I want to thank all of you for responding. I'm usually in communication with Nathifa, so certainly, Nathifa, I'm grateful that you were able to make it. We did try to reach some other past students of the convent, but due to scheduling conflicts, they were unable to be here today. But we thought it was important to honor what we believe here on the Bubb Report. Is an educator that has given so much selflessly to the empowerment and the education and the upliftment of girls, both in Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in other parts of the Caribbean. We extend our deepest condolences to the St. Joseph's Convent family, as well as to the Sisters of St. Joseph's Cluny on the passing of Sister Gabrielle. May her soul rest in peace, and may her legacy and may her memory be a blessing. Panelists, thank you. On behalf of the hardworking producers of the Bubb Report, I am your humble servant, Dr. Kellen Bubb, signing off. Of course, this program we hope to be aired also on the Grenada Broadcasting Network, as well as on WPG 10 for those who did not get an opportunity to see it. It would also be available on YouTube as well for subsequent viewing if you did not have an opportunity to view this program live. Again, have a pleasant evening, and until next time, goodbye. Why would we have a